Hi, my name's Ricky. I'm a salaried GP, and this video is about filling in your Type 2 pension forms for the 22-23 year. This isn't going to be a polished video. I've not even tidied my room behind me. It's currently the 22nd of March 2024, so we've got 9 days left to fill out this form, and I know it's a form that kind of, you know, we get a bit anxious about filling out. We're not trained to do this kind of stuff. I don't know why we're meant to be doing this kind of stuff. But it is what it is, and we need to fill out this form. And so I've been looking at it for the past few days. Historically, I'm rubbish at it. I always do it on the last day, never really quite understand it. All my pension records are just completely all over the place. I've got missing years and all sorts of stuff, and I'm sure many people are the same. Everyone's records tend to be incorrect, but we do need to fill out this form by the end of this year. And I'm going to try and relay some of the stuff that I've picked up over the past few days. I think I've got a bit of an understanding. More than happy if I'm wrong, please just drop some notes in the comments if there's anything which you think's incorrect in this video. But to my understanding, I think it should be pretty much okay. So we'll be navigating to different links throughout this video. So all of those links will be in the underneath this video if you need to go directly to them. When I was trying to do this form, it's quite difficult to navigate around and find where you need to find stuff. So I'm hoping just to put it all in one place to enable salary GP colleagues and locum colleagues to make the process a little bit easier. Okay. Really important to maybe say from the outset, I'm not a financial advisor. This isn't expert advice. Nothing in here can you take as financial advice. Everyone's situation is different, and so please get your own financial advice regarding your own pension situation. It's what people seem to say in all financial videos, so I think I should do the same. But yeah, I'm pretty sure most of it's correct, and hopefully it'll be useful for you. So this is all about the 22 to 23 pension year. Now, salary GPs should be doing Type 2 forms every year, but this year's the 22-23 year is different because pension rates changed on the 1st of October 2022. Why they did that, I have no idea, but it's made the whole process a little bit more complicated. You need to split the year up into two sections, two 6-month sections, and stick it all in a calculator, and it's the fact that this is all happening during this year, I think it makes it much more likely that your figures might be all over the place. So don't worry if that happens. And I think it also makes it maybe more likely that your pension contributions that you pay to your practice may be potentially incorrect. But I'll try and unpick that as we go through. In terms of how you can help me, if you like the content on this video, it would be really helpful if you could like and subscribe to this channel. It's a really quick thing to do. I won't bombard you with anything. I don't even put any content out, but if I do have any updates, I'll obviously record another video. There's an opportunity maybe to work with us. We've got a private venture, and so stick around to the end of the video. If you like what you see and who I am, feel free to fill out the Google form at the end, and we'll get in contact at some point in the future. Anyhow, so what you're going to need for this process. So it's really important, if you've got them, to get your pay slips for the 22-23 year. Ideally, all the pay slips, I would say, but in particular, the September 2022 pay slip you've got, and the March 2023 pay slip. And that's for, if you're doing multiple roles, you'll need all of those pay slips, as well as any locum kind of earning records that you've got for the year. So Type 2 forms are about, so we said locum in earnings, it's about salaried earnings and also solo earnings. I don't do any solo work myself, so there won't be much stuff about solo income on this video. If you do officer roles, that's often when you kind of work in a local hospital for some reason. If you're paid from the trust, their pension's done differently. And so this Type 2 form is only for Type 2 work and locum work for this form. Okay, so what is a Type 2 form? A Type 2 form, to my understanding, is basically all about your practice that you worked for and the practice that you work for and PCSE. So it's a process by which PCSE, who take all the pension payments, ensure that they have taken the right amount of money on your behalf, whether it be employers or employees' contributions from your practice where you do salaried work at. So actually, when all these figures are kind of all over the place, it's more about them taking PCSE, making sure that they're taking the right money from the practice. When you join a practice, they should be putting you onto PCSE Online, and so you should be showing on there as someone who's worked at that practice. But when you join a practice, they will estimate your earnings. So and those estimates will be often very wrong and incorrect. The earnings that you might see on PCSE Online may be very different. Mine were tens of thousands of pounds different to what I actually earn. I'll show you on my PCSE Online in a minute. The type 2 form function is to make sure that the practice has paid the right amount of NHS pension on your behalf to PCSE. You'll hear a lot about a second reconciliation, and no one really kind of outlines what a second reconciliation is. So a second reconciliation, to my understanding, is because of all these pension rate changes, we also need to make sure that we have paid the right amount of pension to the practice when we were working there, because of all the faff with the changing in the pension rates. So those are the kind of two parts of the process. So once you've got all your payslips to hand, the next thing to do is work out what your pensionable pay is. Now remember, all of the income that they're talking about is pensionable income, and I've just shown you here what I've done for myself. So for salaried roles, your pensionable income, the technical definition is your gross salary plus ad hoc income net of expenses. So I pulled this off something I found on someone posted on Facebook, but it says it here. So if you want to take a look, a salary GP's pensionable income is their practice salary, including overtime, plus any ad hoc income net of expenses. Essentially, for most people, it's just going to be their gross pay that they received during that time of work. And so what you need to do is go to, let me just go over my year for you. So from the 1st of April to the 30th of September that year, I worked in, for the first part of the year, I worked in the first practice. I left on the 30th of June, and I worked out my pensionable income as £6,043. And then I left that practice, took a 2 or 3 week break, and then I went to the second practice, started on the 21st of July 2022, and that went over the end of the tax year. And so that's what made my second salary post income for that year, and then my locum income. So the locum, your salaried so your pensionable pay for your salaried role is your gross salary. Remember, your gross salary is what essentially the total amount. Then your practice takes off the pension, and then you get a taxable pay after that. So this is not about your taxable pay. It's actually, if you listen to the PCSE webinar, they talk about P60s. P60s are your taxable pay. It's not your pensionable pay. Your pensionable pay is essentially your gross pay. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below. What you want to do is, so for example, this is my first practice I worked for in the year. This is the second practice which I moved over to. So this payslip below is about the second practice. So I pulled my September 2022 payslip, and what should happen is that the total gross pay that I received should be, this number really should be correct here. However, remember I said that I moved from one practice to another practice. I was only in this practice for about 2 or 3 months before I received this payslip, and I didn't earn £10,128 during that time. I actually earned less. I was only doing 2 sessions a week there. So if I actually had to, I knew that was wrong, and so I had to go back through every payslip that I had. In other words, July, August, and September, and I actually added up the individual gross pays that I got in each of those practices. The reason that my total gross pay was wrong there is that that second practice added this figure to my total gross pay. Essentially, they carried over my previous earnings. I would have been double counting if I just used that number. So be really careful. Look at your September 22 payslip and make sure you are telling that you're adding, essentially the total gross pay figure is the sum of every gross pay that you've had during that time at that practice. If you were only in one salaried post from 1st of April 2022 through to the 30th of September 2022, this number should be correct. But it's because I moved practices, I ended up actually having to unpick every payslip to make sure that my pensionable pay was the same as the gross pay that I received in each of those 3 months that I was there. I hope that makes sense. So that's what, so for this practice, I actually earned £4,510 when I added up the individuals. And so that's what's going to be my pensionable pay. And then for the salaried practice one, I looked at my last practice, my last pay slip that I received before I left there, and the gross pay was correct, and it was £6,043. That's my pensionable pay for that practice, the first practice that I was at. And then you do the same process for the second half of the year. So you look at your March 23 payslip. But again, if you look at your March 23 payslip, you're going to get a big figure there because it's going to take into account everything from the 1st of April. So ideally, or really, you should be adding the second 6 months of the year for your gross pay that you receive each month to get an understanding of your pensionable pay for the second 6 months. Hope that makes sense. I mean, another way of doing it, but I wouldn't trust it, would be to look at your total gross pay in March 23 and take away your total gross pay from September 22, and that should give you what your pensionable pay is in the second half of the year. But in an ideal world, I would suggest if you've got all the pay slips from the second half of the year, just add each one up, each gross pay for each of those 6 months, and add them up. So that's how you split the pensionable pay for the 6 months for your salaried practices. For locum work, your pensionable pay is 90% of your pay. So if you charged, I don't know, £500 for a locum shift, your pensionable pay will be £450. So it's 90% of your thingy. So I earned about, I don't know, 13 or 13 and a half during the first half of the year, and my pensionable pay was 90% of that. So these are the figures that you're going to need. So after you've worked out your pensionable pay for all of the relevant types of work you've done for a Type 2 form, you're then going to need to go to the annualisation calculator, and that can be found on the NHS Pensions Business Authority, whatever website. The link's going to be below, and you go to the annualisation calculator part of it. It's got some documents you can read, but the calculator's here. Do know that there's a button. It's not a bug, but if you open up that Excel sheet, it may not work. It didn't work for me, and you have to kind of enable macros or something. I'm not going to go into that into this video, but if you look at the NHS Pensions webinar, again, I'll put a link below. They're on YouTube. They do explain about how to open that Excel sheet if you're struggling. It's not too complicated, but that's how you would open it there. So annualisation calculator. So what this does, basically, what this is a tool which allows you to put in all of your pensionable earnings throughout the year on this left-hand side here, and then it will split your year up into 2 6-month parts, and it will tell you what your pensionable, so your rate should be based on the type of work that you've done. It is an unfair process, I think. I did a few locum shifts at the beginning of in the first half of the year, and that has pushed me into a higher pension bracket than I think I should be paying, but it's basically just unfair. So, and just to be clear, with locum work, you're only meant to declare on here the days you actually worked. So if you worked Monday to Friday and you earned every day and you earned £2,500, you could put, Monday to Friday, start date, end date, £2,500. But if you did one shift a week, you're only meant to declare the days that you've done. And obviously that's going to make the calculator think that you earn a whole load of money, and it's going to put you into a higher pension kind of bracket, but that's what it is, unfortunately. So to go over this form, make sure you've got the right drop down at the top. So it's the 22-23 year. All of these figures, you'll see the 6,000, the 4,000, the 18,000. If you go back to my sheet here, 6,000, 4,000, 18, that's my pensionable pay for those roles. Those are the dates I started and finished. Obviously, if you're doing I've realised I've probably done something wrong on my own one here. Now, actually, see what I've done. I've actually splitted my Type 2 roles from when I started to September, and from October to the end of the year. I reckon that actually that second role that I did, because it was for the full year, I could just do that on one line. I'll change that myself later. I hope that makes sense. But maybe for the purpose of the calculator, what I'm actually going to do is change this date to the end of the tax year and just put the total in one line. It probably won't make any difference to the pension contributions. I hope that makes sense. Sorry, I've got that wrong. Looks like I might have got that potentially wrong on my own one. And yeah, so all of the individual locum dates that you've done. So you'll see that like these 2 days, I did 2 days in a row. So I put start date, end date, and a bit more money. But all the other days are ad hoc days, which I've just put one line for each one. So once you put all of your locum shifts in here, and actually I will go from this point, it's going to be useful to know whether NHS England, sorry, PCSE have got these details already for your locum shift. So I'm going to pull away from your annualisation calculator first and actually say that maybe before doing that, if you go to PCSE online, sign in and go to pensions, go to the employee contribution statement and click the right year. So it's 22-23 that we're looking at, and click search. This will give the information that PCSE have for you in their bank account, essentially, what you've paid, what they've received for you in terms of these two columns. This column, the income type, is the month income may be very wrong, and I didn't earn £9,333 that month. I was only doing two sessions a week for that practice. So what you can do here, let's just take it separately. So if you go to your locum earnings, press search. So that's listed all my locum earnings for that year, and these figures, that's total. That I think. Remember, I said pensionable income is 90% of. I think is that would be 90% of that. And you want to just make sure that they've got all the records for you for your stuff that you've sent off to them from your locum, like Form A's and B's, and sent them money. Just want to make sure that from your records that they've got the right amount of money on there in PCSE online. And then if you toggle to the monthly salary, remember I said that these figures are going to be all over the place. I would just ignore them. These are all based on estimates that your practice would have given to PCSE on your behalf when you joined, and they're often really wrong. So don't worry too much about the monthly income column, but these are the records that PCSE have online in terms of how much the practice has paid on your behalf for your NHS pension. Okay, the reason I'm showing you that now is that when you look at the locum earnings, a good exercise would be to make sure that your records that you've kept are the same as what PCSE have received, and then also tally with the locum earnings that you're putting in here for your annualisation calculator. Right, so you've put all your pensionable pay from your salaried roles, from your locum roles inside this calculator, and you calculate it, and then it will give you what NHS pensions feel that you should be paying as pension contributions, as employee pension contributions, for the first 6 months of the year and for the second 6 months of the year. So you're going to need to take these figures, 12.5%, 9.8% for me. You may find that these figures feel a bit unfair depending on your situation and how much locum work you've done, but it is what it is. So that 12.5% and 9.8% is what comes out of this, and that's what you're going to need to start filling in the Type 2 form. So if I minimize this, so let's go to the Type 2 form, I think is the next thing to do. So let's go to pensions, go to your Type 2 form, and go to self-assessment. Wait for my slow internet to load up, and then you go to the 22 to 23 year. Now you can see it says already initiated and completed. It's because I've been playing with it already. The other reason why it might be already initiated or completed, or you don't see any date there, or the right date there, is if your practice never put you on PCSE England in the first place. So that's, I think, probably a bigger problem. But if you're getting this kind of grey box and you can't go into it, it's because you may have already started it and it saves it as a draft. So if you go to GP pensions, go to the employee Type 2 form again, then you've got to go to this listing screen here to reopen your previous draft that you've done. How do I do that? So just press search, and then you can see all the years. I've got one missing somewhere, and this, it tells you whether they're approved or not. And then you click on this to open up your pension for your Type 2 form. Remember, if you haven't done this before, you'd have got into it directly from the Type 2. What I can do for you actually maybe is just delete that one and start again, because if I go to GP pensions and listing and go search. So I just want to just do it so you can see. So if I shouldn't have done that, sorry. If I go to delete, just confirm. So now I don't have any draft forms. So if I go back to GP pensions, self-assessment, hopefully, if I've not screwed anything up, uh, 22, 23. So now I can start the form here, save and next. And this opens the form. So it's going to open, you've got different sections, your personal details, it's got your first half of the year, the second half of the year, and you'll put in the relevant rate. So for example, this is the April to September part of the year. So I'm going to say, if I went back to my pensions calculator, it says 12.5%. So I've got to drop down, got to do 12.5%, unfortunately. Not the Type 1 section if you're salaried, but Type 2. Can you see, so for this practice, it's saying I earned 21,978, when actually my records showed that for the first half of the year for that practice, I earned 4,510.53. So I would put in that number here, 4,510. Oh God, that's all right. Clearly put it in the wrong box. Actually, it's important because you don't want to change that box. That box is what they have received on your behalf. So let's just, it's not going to let me undo that. So let me, sorry, this is not a polished video, but I do want to get it out to you. I'm going to just delete that again, and we'll do it properly again if that's all right, because it's important that we get this right. So I'm going to go to the listing screen, go to, I'm going to re-cancel that one again because I can't remember what number there was in that box. Go back to self-assessment. Select the financial year, which is this one, and save and next. Right, so remember, so this £3,186 is what the practice have paid NHS England already, and so if I put my earnings that I actually got from that practice in, so remember that's the second practice I was in, so first half of the year, second, that's 4510.53. So if I go 4510.53 and I come out of the box, that should change that number, but it's not doing it. But anyway, 4510.53. Maybe it will do it when I save it later. So the other practice was this one, which was 6043.29. And then put my locum earnings in there, which are actually correct. So it's 11,952. If you remember, the pensionable earnings, well, that was correct. And it's not working. Oh, I've not put my rate in. So 12.5%, remember, and all these things have updated. So can you see if you these are the numbers? So this now says that. So imagine I did earn £100,000 in that one. It will now say the practice that will say you've underpaid your pension. So your practice actually owes NHS pensions £9,313, but I actually earned £4,510, and it's adjusting accordingly. So basically, this is what you actually earn in pensionable earnings for that practice. This is what the practice has already paid NHS, PCSE, and because I actually earned a lot less than they anticipated, it looks like the practice is owed back £2,623 from PCSE on your behalf. But none of this is due to what I actually paid in pension to the practice, right? This is all about a reconciliation between PCSE Online and the practice, because all of their pension contributions were based on estimated figures. I never really understood this in the past, but I think that's what I understand by it now. So the whole Type 2 form is all about telling PCSE Online what you earned in pensionable pay during those 6-month periods for each of your roles and locum, and the middle column here is what they've actually taken from either you as a locum or from the practice on your behalf, and therefore whether they owe the practice or you owe or they owe the practice or the practice owes them money. For example, for the other role that I did, 6,043, PCSE only took £408, and so the practice actually owes them £347, and they're going to just do that between themselves. Got nothing to do with us. In fact, so it's a real kind of learning point for me, is that this whole process is more about making sure that the practice has paid the right amount of pension to NHS England. So I hope that makes sense in terms of the Type 2 form. Obviously, you do this for the first half of the year, then you save and go to the next one, and you do the same thing for the second half of the year based on the figures that you have that you got together, you pulled together. Right. So next, the third step, and I've not actually done this step myself, is called the second reconciliation. There's no data, there's no information anywhere about this. So again, I'm just going to let you know what I feel is correct, but please don't take this as read. Maybe get your own advice. None of this is financial advice, la-di-da-di-da. But the second reconciliation is about, because the whole thing was all over the place that year, it may be that the practice didn't take the right amount of pension from you in the first place. So what you need to do, again, go to your pay slips for September 22 and March 23, figure out how much pension you paid in those 6-month periods. Maybe add up each 6 months of your pay slips for the first half of the year, the second half of the year. Find out what your total pension that you paid during that 6 months is, and then I think I did it here actually. Yeah, so if you find out what the pension is taken from your pay slip in the 6 months, divide it by the gross earnings that you earn in those 6 months, which is your pensionable pay, times 100 to make a percentage, and that will give you a rate of pension that you actually were paying to that practice. Now, it might be that that rate is high or low or not the same, and that is the kind of reconciliation that you may need to do with your practices to make sure that you haven't underpaid or overpaid. So that's what my understanding for the second reconciliation is. What you then do need to do or not do, up to you. Cool. So I think that's pretty much it. So just as in summary, the Type 2 form is all about making sure that your practice has paid the right amount of money on your behalf for pension to PCSE Online, to PCSE. Actually, my understanding is that that's got nothing to really do with you. It's to do with those two people, but they're kind of reliant on you telling them stuff. And the reconciliation is about just making sure that you paid the right amount of NHS pension in employee contributions by looking through your pay slips and dealing with that accordingly. Again, I hope that's really useful for you. It wasn't a polished video, and it was a bit all over the place, and I'm sorry about the mistakes, but I just felt that it would be useful to share learning on this, basically. And some of the principles obviously can be used for previous years. You wouldn't have to do any of the kind of the 6-month thingies for those years. And I probably need to go back and make sure I've historically done it correctly as well, I think. So again, if you can like and subscribe to this, if this has been useful for you, it's going to be super useful for me if you can like and subscribe to this channel. We don't put much content out. And the reason I'm saying that is I'm a salaried GP, but a few years ago, me and a colleague set up a private service in the city called the Montague Clinic. We were growing it. It all started before COVID. It was going really well. And then COVID hit. We lost our footfall. And long and short of it is we don't really have a face-to-face service anymore. But we'll be looking. But we had a really good kind of vibe. Our punters in the city loved it. It was essentially like a pay-as-you-go GP service. We're CQC registered. And we are going to be picking it up again soon, and it's probably going to be in the form of remote consultations. So we're going to be on the lookout for fun GPs who want to be part of a cohesive team. It's really important for us to have good working relationships with people that we get on with, have banter, but share clinical knowledge, but just do things in a fun way. So if you're up for doing some private GP work, we're going to be looking into kind of covering indemnity. We can figure out how money works later. But in terms of expressions of interest, if you work in the UK, GMC registered, interested in doing some private work, if you like me, if you like the kind of vibe, then just fill out the Google form below this video. And when the time is right, we will get in touch with you and see if you're up for doing some remote sessions. We will sort out all of the CQC, the patient record system, the the WhatsApp groups so we can share information, have fun, all that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in any of that, leave your details below, put some fun comments in, and we'll get in touch with you in the future. So guys, I hope you find that video useful. Don't do many videos these days. Want to do some more hopefully going forward. And if you like and subscribe, if there are any updates for this, you'll get a notification. But for now, thank you for listening.